Hey, this is Chris Buono, and this is Street Smarts, brought to you by Bog Street. Today's subject of our conversation is a bit of a contentious one. It is sweep picking. Sweep picking is an economical technique where you take a pick and run it or sweep it across the strings with one motion, not multiple motions, one motion, whether you're going up, which would be down towards the floor, or down in pitch, which would be going up towards the ceiling. Whatever the case may be, you're sweeping through whatever it is you're playing. Now, this usually pertains to one note per string. But there's instances where you can absolutely do it with other sequences, such as 2 note per string mixed in with 1 note per string, or if you're really industrious, you can make it into 2 note per string consistently and stuff like that. What I was playing before was actually that arpeggio at the end of Jump, of all people, Eddie Van Halen, was not much of a sweep picker. There's a difference between raking and sweep picking, and it's very, very similar. Raking is when you literally take the pick and just go across the strings, but you're not intentionally trying to get any notes, such as this, where I was getting those top 3 notes of that sus2 arpeggio. A rake would be more like me coming into that last note, that high G, like this, and raking across the strings. And as you heard, there was no pitches preceding that high G. It was just the percussion of it. So it's something that we've talked about here before in Street Smarts when, I brought up the subject of pick scrapes and string percussion. This would fall under that. Sweeping is when you hear the notes. So as opposed to what I just did, where I was purposely trying to rake, here's pitches. There's the pitches. Now, me just going up like that, you can have the argument about whether that's a rake or not. But we start doing stuff like this, those are sweeps. So I went across the strings and I made contact with each one, trying to ring out the notes as consistently as best as I can to go up and to come down. The key with sweep picking and its difference between anything else is the fact that I'm going across the strings with one motion. Now, is one right or wrong? Is one better than the other? It all depends on the player. As I've said up here many times, and I'll continue to say that, you have to find the technique and the method of that technique that is best for your playing. So I do both, but when it's sweeping, it's sweeping. Sweeping, going across, right? You want to definitely approach this technique slow, because if you don't, you could get yourself a false sense of security, and that is maybe sweeping across an arpeggio like that. Let's go to C major arpeggio. That's right here, this guy. Now, I talk about this in my Guitar Gym course for TrueFire, sweep picking. The Guitar Gym has many skills in it. Sweep picking is one of them. And in there, I stress that you have to feel the resistance of the strings against your pick, and that's how you truly know that you're sweeping across the strings. So doing it slow, you can totally assess that. But at the same time, you can also start mistakenly getting into a singular motion for each one of the strings. You definitely want to make sure you're sweeping across and you're looking for that resistance. Now, if you do this stuff and you get into it and you kind of skip over that step, it's very likely that you're going to get to this. What I did was, it seems like I was a sweep picking thing. It seems like it was, but it wasn't, because I didn't play the notes. I literally just played the low note and the high note and just kind of raked in between, but I wasn't meaning to. I was meaning to sweep. Sometimes that happens and stuff. And hey, to each his own. Everybody is an artist. Everybody can interpret this and express themselves however they want. And no one has to sweep any which way or another. But you want to do the sweep picking thing and you want to hear the notes. You're going to have to put time into it to make sure that the notes get played. One good tip with that I can pass along is, well, use a pick you're comfortable with. You can try different gauges, but a heavy pick might be the thing that you're looking for because of the resistance. Now, what I'm using here today is a Bog Street Battle Axe. I use this a lot here in Street Smarts, and this is one of my favorite go-to picks. It's got same edges on each side. They're beveled. It's got a good grip. The hole's in the middle like most of them and stuff, but that angle thing is really cool for sweep picking. The other thing is, regardless of the pick, I suggest that you do the stroke, but you angle the point of the pick. And you should do this with a lot of techniques, but sweeping especially. You want to angle the pick so that you're making the least amount of contact of the pick to the strings, the least amount of mass, because you want the resistance, but you don't want to make it hard. So you want to go across, but you want to do it like you're slicing it and do it efficiently. This applies to ascending sweeps. So that's great. Now, descending sweeps, whole different ball game. For me personally, that is the hardest thing to do. That's right up there for me with inside pivots on a descending run if I'm playing something intervallically. So one way that I found out that makes it easier for me, or helps me with that, is I do the opposite of the angle that I just talked about. On descending sweeps, I turn my wrist and I get the angle to be like this. So ascending sweeps, I angle this way and cut that way. Descending sweeps, I angle this way and cut this way. Put those both together and you may be able to get a sweeping technique that sounds exactly the way you want it to. That's the way I wanted mine to sound. Like I said, sweeping doesn't just have to be one note per string. It can be multiple notes per string, or it could be a combination of one note and other notes per string, such as 2 notes per string. But in a nutshell, and I do it too, it's this. Here's a minor 7 arpeggio, which I think I included in that run that I played for you at the top. So what I did right there is I did sweeping, but it's a staggered sweep, and it's not single motion between each one of the strings. It's a staggered sweep. So meaning I sweep and I stop the motion, but then I push it when it's time. Now what I mean by that is the first thing I did here was activate that note and play a hammer on it. But I'm waiting to fall onto the next string. I'm not waiting to pick it with a separate motion, a separate downstroke motion. I'm just waiting to continue the sweeping motion. So, and that applies for both the ascending and the descending. I really like the sound of those, and I find that those patterns are actually easier to play than one note per string. One note per string is really tough, and you should expect to put a lot of time into it and definitely have a lot of patience. Either way, it's a very rewarding technique, and if you're going for it and you put the time in, you will get there. And that's the beginning of the conversation of sweep picking. This is Chris Buono, and this is Street Smarts, brought to you by Bog Street. See you on the next one.